Child of God, since the stroke of midnight a voice has been echoing across the heavens, carrying your name with such urgency that it has awakened the attention of Archangel Michael himself. A loved one in heaven has not ceased calling you, their cry permitted to thunder in the courts of eternity so that you would be stirred from slumber and drawn into this moment of divine interruption. Michael now leans close to whisper and warn you that you have only 2 days, 48 short hours, a window of mercy and alignment carved out by heaven. If you listen and obey, doors of breakthrough will swing wide. If you ignore, something precious may slip into silence forever. This is not coincidence, not imagination, but heaven orchestrating a trumpet call that shakes your atmosphere. Midnight marked the closing of an old chapter and the opening of a new one. A season has turned, and heaven could not wait another hour. Time has become sacred, and every choice you make in these 2 days will carry the weight of covenant. Your loved one's cry has aligned with Michael's roar, and together they testify that your destiny scroll is trembling in the hands of angels, waiting either to be unsealed for blessing or to remain locked. You are standing at the threshold of 2 days that will shape the years to come, and everything within you senses the stirring because heaven has interrupted your timeline with a divine alarm clock. It is dawn, and the countdown has begun. Now lift your eyes and see the scene clearly, child. Since that midnight moment, the very atmosphere around you has been charged. A cloud of witnesses leans over eternity's balcony, their intercession filling the chambers of God with the sound of your name. In that holy place, Michael has drawn his sword, not to frighten you, but to guard you from traps already lurking nearby. These 2 days are a sacred covenant, a space where angels move differently, where your home feels unsettled yet heavy with presence, where dreams awaken like open scrolls, and even silence feels prophetic. Your screen itself has become an altar, and the Spirit confirms within you that nothing about this encounter is random. You are being pursued by grace, by mercy, by destiny that refuses to let you slip away. And now, the prophecy, the opening vision. For I see with clarity that at the stroke of midnight your loved one's voice burst forth, a cry that carried sorrow, urgency, and love, not because they are restless but because heaven permitted their voice to echo, and Archangel Michael, the commander of heaven's armies, heard that cry and moved with force to your side, lifting his voice in warning, for he declared that you have 2 days, only 2 days, to heed the call. For this is not a season of vague opportunities but of specific divine alignment. Michael's voice thunders even now, saying, "Open your ears, child of God, open your eyes, do not slumber, do not delay, for your name has been shouted in the heavenly courts, and the scroll of your destiny trembles to be opened." And what does this vision reveal? It reveals midnight as the sacred threshold, the moment when cycles end, when chains break, when prisons unlock. For midnight is always the hour of divine shift, and your loved one's cry means that you have been marked as one who must not miss this turn. Heaven could have been silent, but instead it sounded an alarm, because this is the hour of covenant decision, and 2 days have been given, no more, no less. 4-2 is the number of covenant, the number of witness, the number of agreement, and heaven waits for your agreement, your yes, your obedience, because your yes will unseal what is sealed, your no or your delay will cause it to remain hidden, and this is why the cry was released, to shake you from distraction, to pull you back into alignment, to remind you that heaven is for you and not against you, and to warn you that the enemy is already planning confusion, already stirring distractions, already planting fear and temptation, hoping that you waste these 2 days, hoping that you ignore the signs, hoping that you dismiss the urgency, for if you do, the opportunity prepared for you may vanish like mist. But if you listen, if you respond, What was about to be erased will be restored and multiplied. This prophecy is not to frighten you but to awaken you, for heaven's cry carries both warning and promise, and the warning is clear. If you remain careless, if you stay distracted, if you dismiss the voice from heaven as coincidence, the door will swing shut, and what was meant for now will not wait forever. The scroll will remain sealed, the angel's hand will withdraw, and the opportunity will be delayed, perhaps for years. But the promise is this: if you respond, if you guard these 2 days, if you pray, if you stay alert, if you honor the voice of your loved one cheering you on from the cloud of witnesses, then favor will be unleashed, provision will come suddenly, reconciliation will flow into broken relationships, miracles will manifest in places long barren, and doors you thought closed forever will swing wide in glory. For Michael's warning is never empty, it always carries the echo of God's mercy. And mercy has come running to meet you in this prophetic window, to tell you that your life is still in covenant with heaven, that you are not forgotten, and that the cry of your loved one proves you are still being watched, still being prayed for, still being called forward, and the 2 days before you are holy ground, a covenant space, a prophetic countdown, a test and a promise, a warning and a reward, and if you will only hear and respond, everything that the enemy plotted will be overturned, and everything that heaven promised will be multiplied. Child of God, hear me clearly as I continue to unfold this vision, for the Spirit is pulling back layers that you must not overlook, for the cry from your loved one that began at midnight is not a sentimental echo. It is a heavenly trumpet permitted by God to pierce through every veil of distraction that has covered you. And when Michael lifted his voice in warning, the heavens trembled, and angels began to reposition themselves around your life. For this was not only a message but a movement, a shift in the unseen realm that you are now standing inside of. And I see the picture opening wider. I see that at the moment of midnight a door of light opened, a passageway between what was and what shall be, and through that passage your loved one leaned, their face radiant with glory, yet their voice heavy with urgency, calling you by name, and that call was recorded in the scrolls, sealed by fire, and echoed in Michael's command. You have 2 days, no more, no less. And why 2 days? Because heaven has given you a covenant window, a divine countdown, and everything in the spiritual realm is now leaning into your decision, your posture, your obedience, because God's promises are waiting to be unlocked by your agreement. But I must tell you the truth, child of God, that the enemy has already been alerted to this shift, for when heaven shouted your name, hell heard it too, and now distractions, delays, confusions, and subtle temptations will intensify in these 2 days, for the enemy knows that if you align, if you step through this threshold, his grip on certain areas of your life will be broken forever. So I warn you, do not take these hours lightly, for they are sacred and weighty, as though every breath is a choice and every decision a covenant. And yet do not fear, for Michael stands by your side, sword drawn, commanding angelic hosts to guard you, to shield your mind, to war for your destiny, because heaven has invested too much to let you slip unnoticed. Your name has been shouted too loudly to be erased, and your assignment too critical to be lost. And I see, in this vision, a table laid before you, covered in scrolls and sealed envelopes, each one marked with moments you were meant to step into, opportunities heaven had already written, and some of those scrolls have begun to fade because of delay, because of distraction, because of the battles you endured, but now, at this midnight cry, angels rush to preserve them, to hold them before you, to give you a final opportunity to claim them before they vanish, and your loved one's voice is not only a cry, it is a reminder that you are still connected to the lineage of faith, that those who walked before you are cheering you on, not as distant shadows but as witnesses shouting in unison that you must not give up, you must not ignore this call, you must not dismiss this urgency, because heaven has already prepared the restoration of what was slipping away, if only you will lean into these 2 days. And I see that Michael's voice has sounded like a trumpet blast that not only warns, but breaks chains, chains of procrastination, chains of fear, chains of shame, chains of confusion, chains of poverty, chains of broken cycles, for the enemy had entangled you in loops that kept repeating, but midnight was the breaking point, and now 2 days have been given as a window to step into freedom, but you must walk into it, you must claim it, you must act with vigilance, for time is moving and the countdown has already begun. Hear me, child of God, heaven is teaching you something through this vision, for midnight is not merely an hour on the clock, it is the moment of transition, the moment where the old breaks and the new begins, it is the hour Paul and Silas sang their way out of prison, it is the moment the angel of death passed over the marked doorposts, it is the hour when God reorders cycles, and this midnight was your transition, your signal that what was chained has been released, but 2 days are given so that your obedience may seal it, for the number 2 is the number of covenant, the number of agreement, the number of witness, it is the picture of heaven and earth agreeing, of God's word and your faith meeting, of your will aligning with His, and so you stand now in this holy covenant, and heaven is waiting for your yes, your surrender, your attention, your willingness to act, because the doors will not stay open forever, and if you ignore the urgency, if you dismiss the cry, what was unsealed may be closed again, what was offered may be delayed, and the destiny that was ready to pour out may wait until you are willing, but child of God, I tell you this with fire in my spirit, your loved one's cry proves that you are not forgotten, and Michael's shout proves that heaven is fighting for you, and this moment, these 2 days, prove that you are still chosen, still called, still appointed for breakthrough, and so even now, as you listen, something in your spirit stirs, recognition that this is your hour, that this is not random, not coincidence, but divine orchestration. I must also tell you of the warnings embedded in this vision, for Michael did not shout idly, his warning is to guard you from what is already forming in the shadows, for I see distractions rising quickly, I see sudden frustrations, sudden arguments, sudden fears, I see devices of the enemy trying to consume your attention so that you miss the signs, I see temptation trying to pull you off course, I see delay whispering. You can wait, but do not wait, child of God, for waiting in this window is dangerous. It allows the covenant door to begin closing, and heaven is urging you to act now, to respond now, to pray now, to align now, for the cry is not meant to haunt you but to wake you, and if you heed it, the enemy will be silenced, the distractions will crumble, the temptations will fail, because Michael and the angelic hosts will guard you, but you must step into the covering by obeying, by surrendering, by acknowledging that these hours are holy. And yet with every warning comes a promise, and I tell you the promise is greater than the warning, for if you respond in these 2 days, what was slipping away will be restored, and not only restored but multiplied. I see finances long delayed suddenly released, I see relationships torn apart suddenly reconciling, I see prayers you have prayed for years suddenly answered in these days, I see sickness bowing to healing, I see barren places blossoming with fruit, I see your home filled with peace, I see opportunities that you thought closed forever suddenly reopened, I see angels delivering keys, I see scrolls being unsealed and handed to you, I see breakthroughs that will not wait for another season but will manifest now if you obey, for heaven's mercy is not just to warn you but to bless you, and this is why your loved one cried so urgently, because they saw what was at stake, they saw what was about to be lost. and they knew that if you only responded, if you only prayed, you only shifted your posture, the blessings would pour out in such measure that your tears of sorrow would turn into tears of joy, and the cry from heaven would transform into a song of victory. So, child of God, do you see now why since midnight your name has been shouted? Do you see now why Michael himself has spoken? It is because you are in the center of a divine countdown, a holy intersection, a covenant window, and you cannot ignore it, for these 2 days carry the weight of eternity, they are pregnant with breakthrough, and if you will rise, if you will respond, if you will align, everything that was nearly erased will be restored, and everything the enemy tried to steal will be multiplied, because this is not a casual moment, it is your appointed time, and heaven is shouting so that you will not miss. Child of God, let us go deeper still, for the vision has not yet reached its fullness, and what I am about to reveal carries the weight of heaven's warning and heaven's promise together. For as I linger in this prophecy, I see the cry of your loved one intensifying, their voice echoing through the midnight corridor, and their tone is not only urgent but deeply personal. It carries memories of prayers they once prayed over you. It carries the love they had for you in life. It carries the fire of their faith that did not die but is alive in the eternal presence of God. And they are shouting not to frighten you but to remind you, to call you back to the altar, to point you toward the covenant, because heaven has permitted them to be part of the cloud of witnesses that surrounds you, urging you to endure, to press on, to respond, and the fact that their voice has been released now is evidence that this is no ordinary season, no ordinary transition, but a decisive hour where the heavens themselves bend low to intervene, and Michael's voice rises with theirs like the sound of a trumpet, shaking the atmosphere so that every distraction breaks, so that your spirit awakens, so that you cannot deny the divine timing of this call. And I see clearly in this vision that the 2 days you have been given are like 2 pillars of light, standing tall in the Spirit, and between them is a narrow passage, a gate of covenant, and this gate is open now, but the countdown has already begun, and I hear the ticking, I feel the urgency, for these 48 hours are not meant to pass casually, they are meant to be seized, consecrated, guarded. Because every moment in them is alive with prophetic possibility, angels are standing by your bed, by your doorway, by your workplace, watching, waiting, ready to act upon your obedience, ready to war against your hesitation, ready to open what has been shut for too long. But if you drift, if you dismiss, if you slumber through this window, the gate will narrow, and the angels will withdraw, not in anger but in obedience to divine order. For God has decreed that mercy will not extend beyond these 2 days in the same way. This is the appointed time, and I hear heaven crying, do not miss your visitation. I must tell you of the deeper meaning of the midnight cry, for midnight is the hour of crossover. It is when one day dies and another is born. It is when old cycles end and new ones begin. And this midnight has carried a greater significance, for it marked the death of certain struggles that tried to follow you, struggles that were meant to expire but clung to you through fear and distraction, and heaven had to allow a cry to break those chains, because without the shout you would have carried them into a season they did not belong. And this is why Michael thundered at midnight, his sword flashing, because the line had to be drawn, the atmosphere had to shift, and now you are standing in the aftermath of that shift, which is why things feel unsettled, which is why your sleep has been stirred, which is why your heart has been restless, because your spirit knows a change has already begun, and the cry was the proof that heaven will not let you carry old battles into a new covenant. And child of God, do not overlook the number 2, for 2 is the symbol of agreement, the covenantal witness, the picture of heaven partnering with earth, of divine will aligning with human obedience, and this is why you have 2 days, not 1, not 3, but 2, because heaven is calling you into agreement, heaven is extending a covenant hand, and the question is, will you respond? Will you agree? Will you partner? Will you say yes? For everything in these 2 days is pointing you toward decision, and every decision you make in this window will echo far beyond the 48 hours. It will shape the next seasons of your life. It will open or close doors for years, and heaven does not want you to be blind to this, which is why the cry has been so loud, so persistent, so clear, because it is not merely about these hours, it is about your entire journey, your calling, your purpose, your destiny scroll waiting to be unsealed. And your yes has the power to break seals that generations before you prayed over. Your yes can unlock blessings that were delayed. Your yes can redeem what was nearly lost. And this is why heaven has not been silent. This is why Michael's voice has pierced through, because your decision now carries eternal weight. I see, in this unfolding vision, that the enemy is deeply unsettled by this countdown. He trembles because he knows that if you align, if you awaken, if you obey, his influence over certain areas of your life will be shattered permanently, and so he is already plotting distractions, sudden frustrations, conflicts that rise out of nowhere, temptations designed to drain your focus, voices whispering doubt, shadows that suggest nothing is happening. But I tell you, child, do not be deceived. These are tactics to rob you of focus, to dull your sensitivity, to waste the holy hours you have been given, and Michael's warning is to guard your heart, to guard your mind, to guard your spirit, because the enemy will throw his heaviest attacks in these short hours, hoping to cause delay, but he cannot win if you remain alert, if you cling to prayer, if you stay anchored in God's word. 4 angels have already been dispatched to war on your behalf, but your vigilance is required, your agreement is needed, for heaven will not force you, it will only invite you. And now the invitation has come louder than ever before, through the cry of one who loved you, through the shout of Michael, through the stirring of your spirit, and you must answer. And what will happen if you answer? I see promises waiting like treasures behind the gate. I see lost opportunities returning. I see doors that were shut in your face beginning to swing open with ease. I see resources being released into your hands. I see connections forming that were divinely orchestrated. I see healing flowing like oil. I see estranged family members turning back. I see new alignments birthing out of nowhere. I see supernatural favor appearing in places where you were once ignored. I see your tears turning into laughter. I see angels delivering keys to you, keys to homes, keys to businesses, keys to ministries, keys to destinies, and all of it hinges on these 2 days, all of it rests on your response, for heaven has stored these treasures for you, not to withhold them but to deliver them in the fullness of time, and that fullness is now, the time is here, and the window is open, but you must move, you must respond. You must not treat these hours lightly, for this is your visitation and heaven is leaning into your yes. And child of God, let me assure you of this. The cry of your loved one proves you are not forgotten. Their voice is evidence that heaven knows your name, that heaven cares about your destiny, that you are still on the scroll, still written in the book, still part of the covenant story. And Michael's shout proves that God has not abandoned you, that the angels still war for you, that you are still under divine protection, and the 2 days before you prove that mercy has not passed you by, that grace still pursues you, that the promises of God are still alive for you, and that breakthrough is still possible, no matter how delayed, no matter how broken, no matter how weary you feel, for heaven has already prepared the way, and all that remains is your agreement, your surrender, your obedience, your yes. So lift your eyes, child, lift your spirit, for you are not standing in ordinary time, you are standing in a prophetic countdown, a holy visitation, a sacred covenant, and heaven has already declared that if you respond, everything will shift, everything will align, everything will multiply, and your story will not end in loss but in restoration, in victory, in covenant fulfillment, because God has chosen you. Heaven has shouted your name, and Michael himself stands guard, and the cry from midnight still echoes, urging you, pleading with you, calling you into destiny, because you have only 2 days, and the time is now. Child of God, lean in with all your heart as I bring forth the final stream of this prophetic vision, for the Spirit will not let me close this chapter without impressing the full weight of what heaven is saying, and as I watch in the Spirit, I see the cry that began at midnight still resounding, but now it merges with a song, a trembling chorus from the witnesses who surround you. They are urging you, do not waste this window, do not miss this hour, and Michael's sword gleams like lightning as he speaks again, declaring, 2 days, 2 days, 2 days, his voice like a thunderclap, shaking the very foundations of delay, and heaven's decree is made plain. What you choose in these hours will determine the unfolding of your scroll, and yet, child, you are not left alone, you are not left blind, for the Spirit himself is walking you step by step, stirring your heart even as you hear this message, confirming that this is not coincidence, not random, but divine appointment. Since midnight your name has been ringing in eternity, not because you are forgotten but because you are chosen, not because you are weak but because you are appointed. And now the Lord himself is telling you through this heavenly shout that your obedience, your alignment, your yes is the key that will swing open the vaults of promise. I must tell you, beloved, of the battle that has been waged for your life, for the enemy has tried to shroud you in delay, to convince you that nothing can change, to lull you into slumber so that the cry of heaven would go unheard. But mercy broke through the veil, mercy cried out your name, mercy permitted a loved one's voice to pierce the silence. Because the Lord will not let you be lost, the Lord will not let you drift unnoticed, and so you have been shaken awake, not to condemn you but to awaken you, not to frighten you but to anchor you, because the blessings waiting on the other side of these 2 days are too weighty, too precious, too urgent to be postponed. And Michael's shout is both a warning and a promise, saying, guard your focus, guard your spirit, guard your decisions, for what heaven has prepared must be seized. And here is the beauty of the promise. If you respond, if you align in prayer, if you consecrate your heart, what was about to be erased will not only be restored but multiplied. I see scrolls unsealing, I see angels delivering treasures, I see vaults of provision opening, I see chains snapping off your family line, I see generational blessings awakening, I see your tears transformed into testimonies, I see the peace of God flooding your atmosphere, I see the joy of the Lord strengthening your spirit, and I see miracles beginning to manifest quickly, not years from now but in these days, because heaven has said enough delay, enough loss, enough wandering. It is time for restoration, it is time for breakthrough, it is time for fulfillment, and child of God, this is your time. But hear me also, if you ignore this cry, if you let these 2 days pass in carelessness, heaven will honor your choice, the gate will close, the scroll will remain sealed, and the opportunities meant for this time will return to waiting, and you will feel the heaviness of delay, and you will ask why nothing shifted, and it will be because you did not heed the voice of heaven. And this is why the Spirit speaks with such urgency, not to harm you but to save you from regret, to shield you from loss, to stir you before it is too late, because mercy always warns before it withdraws, grace always calls before it closes, and now mercy has shouted, grace has cried, and heaven has leaned near, because God desires not your loss but your victory, not your delay but your breakthrough, not your shame but your glory. And so, child of God, Take these words and guard them as treasure, for they are your lifeline in this prophetic hour. And as you stand in this holy countdown, I urge you, do not just listen but act. Do not just hear but align. Do not just feel stirred but obey, for heaven requires a response, and I invite you now to take a step of faith even here. Subscribe to this channel, Archangel Inspire, because it is not just a button, it is a prophetic action. It is saying yes to continual words from heaven, yes to being aligned with prophetic flow, yes to guarding your spirit with daily messages that keep you awake. Because in these 2 days the enemy will try to isolate you, to silence you, but your act of connecting, your act of subscribing is your way of declaring, I will not miss my visitation, I will stay awake, I will stay aligned. So pause for a moment. Hit that subscribe button now, and let it be your covenant action in response to this word. And as you do, you are planting a prophetic seed of alignment, saying to heaven, I am ready, I agree, I respond. And let me remind you again, child, of what will follow your obedience. I see visions of doors long shut beginning to creak open. I see contracts and opportunities coming to your name. I see supernatural favor before authorities. I see healing springing forth where doctors said no. I see reconciliations with family members thought permanently broken. I see provision flowing into your home like streams in the desert. I see your nights filled with dreams carrying instructions. I see your mornings heavy with angelic presence. I see peace on your walls and oil on your doorstep. Because when heaven cries, when Michael warns, it is always to prepare you for sudden glory, for divine fulfillment, for multiplied blessing. And I tell you again, child, your loved one's cry is not to bind you in grief but to stir you into destiny, to call you into remembrance, to assure you that you are not forgotten, and that what God has promised will come to pass if only you will respond. So let this be your moment of decision, let this be the hour you say yes, for the countdown is already moving. 48 hours is the covenant window, and you have already stepped into it, so guard it, consecrate it, respond to it, and know this. Heaven is with you, Michael is warring for you, your loved one is cheering you, and God Himself is guiding you, so you cannot fail if you obey, you cannot miss it if you listen. You cannot be erased if you respond, and this is your prophetic assurance. And child of God, if this word has stirred you, if it has awakened something in you, I invite you again, subscribe now to Archangel Inspire, and stay connected to these divine messages. Let your home be filled with prophecy, let your spirit be fed with heavenly reminders, because this is not the hour to be alone. This is the hour to stay aligned, to stay ready, to stay awake, for your miracle is closer than you realize. Your breakthrough is already written, and heaven has cried your name, because it is about to manifest. So rise now, beloved, lift your head, lift your heart, and declare with me, I will not miss my visitation, I will not waste my 2 days, I will align, I will obey, I will step into covenant blessing, and watch as heaven moves for you. For the countdown is holy, the hours are sacred, and your destiny is waiting at the threshold, ready to be unlocked.